All right, we're back again. It's the guys from the Black Hills Project. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about chest rigs, what we are running, if you should get a chest rig, and just our kind of general thoughts on them.
Yeah.
So, I want to kind of start this by saying gear is kind of a tricky subject because gear for every person and every situation and every environment is going to be different. I know everybody always does the whole like, oh, like mission dependent thing, but it's true to a point. Like
Yeah.
if you live in the middle of Chicago, you're probably going to be better off with a plate carrier than a chest rig.
Right.
But if you live out in the middle of nowhere like I do, I'm not saying I shouldn't have a plate carrier, and I do, but I would say a good portion of the stuff I'm doing, a chest rig is a better fit for me.
Yeah. I think it's not necessarily quote unquote mission dependent. It's more of situation dependent. Not everybody is in the city and not everybody is in the country or out in the woods and in those situations and those scenarios. So I think you have to look at that before you look at the quote unquote mission instead of or in place of that.
Right. And that's kind of our first topic would be, why would you get a chest rig instead of a plate carrier? And one of the first things I would say is price.
Yeah.
Like if you're just starting out and you're looking for something that can hold your mags, that you can start doing drills out of, that you can get out in the field with, a good plate carrier is not super cheap. A good chest rig isn't super cheap either, but you can start with something cheaper that'll last you decently.
Yeah, a good chest rig is cheaper than a good plate carrier.
Especially if you're going to buy a plate carrier, you need to put plates in it.
Yep.
So, and then you're talking, then you're looking at even more. So,
right. I mean, you're looking plate carrier wise, it's plates, the actual plate bags, the cummerbund, the mag pouches, the whatever you're gonna put, 5.56 round or whatever you shoot, 5.56, 7.62, SMG, whatever you want to do. You have to do that. Then you're gonna look at other things like radio pouches, GP pouches, all these different things. So it adds up. Whereas if you get a quality chest rig, it's exponentially cheaper.
Yeah, and you're looking at, I'd say minimum, probably $400 to $500 just for plates for your plate carrier. That's
right.
Before you even get the carrier.
Yep.
So yeah, one of the big things I'd say right away is price, especially for guys that are on a budget. If you can't afford a plate carrier, grab a chest rig.
Right. Plate carriers are nice for sure. They have their uses and they're very good to train with and they're very good to get used to. But the cool thing about chest rigs is that if you buy a specific chest rig or a nice chest rig, most of the time you can just adapt them to go onto a plate carrier anyways down the line. So, which is what I have done with both of my chest rig setups. They're both able to go onto my plate carrier. And that's something we'll go into a little bit deeper, but going back to the plate carriers and buying the plates and everything, if that's something that people want to hear about, we have some experience in that as well, so we can talk about plate carrier setups as well. Just let us know.
Definitely.
We'll probably do it anyways, even if you guys don't say anything, but
yeah, screw you guys, we're going to do whatever we
basically
want.
So that'll be another topic for a different day, but
yeah, that's a great point, is that most mid to higher end chest rigs, you can throw it on your plate carrier when you get it, and it's going to save you money on pouches too. So
yep. And when we say that, it means that they have like the swift clip adjustments on the side and then the top. So
right, which most good plate carriers have now, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so another big thing about chest rigs versus plate carrier would be the weight. Obviously, you don't have the weight of those ballistic plates hanging off of you. So if you're running around in the woods, hiking in the mountains, You want to be able to, you're rucking and you want to be able to carry a pack, which is another big thing with chest rigs, is it leaves your back open to have a pack for more sustainment or more gear. That's a big plus there, as well as the weight and the ability to have a pack without throwing it on over a plate carrier, which is not comfy.
Right. I mean, you lose essentially, depending on how heavy the plates are, you lose 10 to 15 pounds just in plates alone, on top of getting your back open again. And generally, I've noticed that chest rigs are just more maneuverable in general, just how they're laid out, at least the ones that I've used. So with the plate carrier, what's nice about them is that they go all around your sides, the front and the back to put stuff onto. But that can kind of get in the way when you're hiking or doing whatever you're doing outside, when most likely or more likely than not, you just need something to hold your shit on you. So.
Right. And yeah, it's really, like we said, it kind of depends on the situation. To me, a plate carrier is more of a, I don't want to say like direct action or assault or any of the buzzwords like that, but it's like a, hey, I'm going into a situation where I'm probably going to get shot at type of kit. Where for me, a chest rig is more of a, hey, I'm going out in the woods, I'm going to, I'm going camping, I'm doing whatever. I just need something to hold my stuff, and I don't want to carry ballistic plates. It's kind of just depends on the situation and the kind of activity that you're going to be doing, what you really need.
Right.
I mean, ideally both.
Yeah, I mean, down the line, the goal would to have both. Wow, I can't speak English. The goal would be to have both. Excuse me.
There you go.
There we go.
It.
Yep. So, but the point of this specific podcast is to talk about, as far as I'm understanding it, is we're advocating for your first gear load bearing, whatever you want to call it, first purchase, or why you would consider a chest rig over a plate carrier. That's the entire point of this, is new gear, or whatever you're coming into, you don't have anything yet. We advocate strongly for plate carrier. We don't. We advocate strongly for chest rigs, just because of how, I wouldn't say modular, but versatile they are. So,
and it's a smaller investment, and it'll allow you to really kind of fine tune what you like and what you need before you invest into a full plate carrier setup.
Right. And I think you were just about to say it. We're not saying that you shouldn't get a plate carrier down the road.
Right. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't get a plate carrier first if it's within your budget, but don't think that you have to save up and get a plate carrier and the chest rigs are worthless, I guess is what we're saying.
There you
go. So yeah, we can talk a little bit about, because there's kind of different unofficial categories of chest rigs. So you've got like micro rigs, which would be like the Haley Micro or the Spiritus rigs. You've got more sustainment geared rigs, like slick molly rigs that you can put whatever pouches you want. Or I would say that the Mayflower rigs are fairly sustainment based. Mm-hmm. You've got split front rigs that have the zipper down the front. You've got like LBE, which is like goes all the way around you and is just like all of the gear. So there's different categories. I think we both kind of prefer to hang somewhere in that middle zone of, we both enjoy the Mayflowers. We've both run micro rigs. I've run the Haley, you've run the Spiritus. Mm-hmm. So we could talk a little bit quick about those micro rigs and what we liked and didn't like about those.
Yeah, I went with the Spiritus. I think I had the Mark III when it came out like 4 years ago. I bought one of those. I never really used it as a as a chest rig for the longest time, at least. I used it as just a placard on my plate carrier. So all my experience was running 3 mags in the back section, and then running like a half flap with just whatever, a balaclava or some med on there, then I think I swapped it out between a dual pistol pouch thing and then a single M4 AR-15 mag. So, and that was just all what I was feeling or what I was going to be doing. I usually just ran the dual pistol thing to have one pistol mag and a, whatever you call them, like a Leatherman, a multi-tool. So I think they're cool for plate carriers, but I don't think that they're amazing, at least the Spiritus one, because I have a Mark V now, which is only a single layer. It's not the double layer like the Mark III and Mark IV are. So, and that one is strictly on my plate carrier, just a placard now. I don't even run it as a chest rig. So, for a chest rig, I don't know, maybe like a hunting rig, it could be cool, or a hiking rig, it could be cool. But for sustainment and just versatility, I don't think that they're the greatest, even though that they're pretty modular. They just can't hold that much stuff, in my opinion. And this is strictly the Spiritus stuff. I have never run the Haley one, so you can talk about that one if you want.
Yeah, so I basically had the same experience where I do like the rig. I think it's a good chest rig. I think it's, well built, all that stuff. But basically for the kind of stuff we like to do, where you want to carry a decent amount of stuff and you want to be pretty much self-reliant with what you have on you, it didn't hold enough. I mean, it's kind of a flat range rig to me. I was trying to add like danglers and side wings and stuff to like hold all my gear. And I see a lot of guys do that where they get the micro rig and then they start piling all this stuff on it. And I think that for most people, it just doesn't hold enough. Unless you're using it for a specific use case where it's like, oh, I keep this in my car and like I just grab it to have some extra mags if I needed it or something like that. Or what I'm actually using my Haley rig now is for like basically a bino harness for hunting. I have a pair of binoculars and a rangefinder in the back, and then just some random stuff in the front pouch and some med and stuff.
Which, yeah, I think is the best use for those, if I'm being honest. Like a running thing or a trail running thing, like the Hill People gear one. I really like those.
Yep.
Or just literally, like you said, like a bino rig or a hunting rig or something like that. Flat range is, I would never, personally, I would never buy and set up a micro rig for like hiking in the woods and expecting to be carrying a lot of stuff. It's just not practical enough. And then when you start adding stuff onto it, the cool thing about the micro rigs is that they are very modular. And people like Spiritus, I don't think Haley actually makes add-ons, but Spiritus does, and they're cool. But then you start adding stuff onto it, and then it ends up being more than what we both prefer now, which is the Mayflower Gen 4. And
Right.
We'll get into that, but it just doesn't make sense to me to be adding stuff on that,
Right. It kind of defeats the purpose of the micro rig. And another big thing I dislike about the micro rigs is that where a larger chest rig like the Mayflower, it kind of wraps around you. With those micro rigs, you've got that square right in front of you. So the more stuff you put into it, the farther out it goes instead of going around you, if that makes sense. So now you've got a rig that's sticking out 6 inches from your chest. And like you try and go prone or something, it's just not great.
Right, which is why
even if you put those wings and stuff on, it's still all like in the front of you.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for that.
Yeah, and that's why I went with the Mark V over when I was building out my new plate carrier. I went with the Mark V chest rig as a placard instead of the Mark IV, because the Mark IV has two like long slots to put whatever you want into them, and they're stacked on top of one another, and the Mark V's only one. And I just needed to carry 3 mags on my front, and then the rest of my stuff is on the sides, on the cummerbund. So it's true, like if you're trying to go prone with something like a micro rig or one of these Mark IV Spiritus rigs, it's just, obviously it's not impossible, but more traditional chest rigs aren't as pushed out unless you're running like a Molly chest rig that you put a bunch of dual mag things on them, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a personal choice at that point. So.
Yep. That's all. Yeah, like what you feel you need to carry and stuff. But I'll touch real quick on too. I have owned like a Molly chest rig. I've owned an Eagle RRV, and that was a cool chest rig. One of the cool things about it was it has a front flap that folds up over your chest, and then you can put a ballistic plate in that if you want. It kind of has weird curved sides, and you had to kind of finagle pouches to get everything to work right, and it ended up just not being great for me. I've also run a couple split front chest rigs, which typically they're going to have some kind of closure, like a zipper or something up the front and the middle to make it easier to take the chest rig on and off. Those were great chest rigs as well. Ultimately, they usually are aimed at carrying a lot more gear, and I actually ended up feeling that it was too much gear because, I mean, I'm one of those guys, like, I can't have an empty pocket on my chest rig or my plate. You know, like, if there's a slot on there, I got to keep something in it.
Right.
Which is kind of dumb, but that just how it be. So
Yeah.
So it was just like you'd start sticking like, oh, I could fit like one more smoke over here, and like, oh, you know, I can fit, you know, this here, and you just end up carrying too much crap.
Yeah, and I don't think chest rigs are like generally made to be huge load bearing things. You know, I mean, you want to carry stuff, right? That's why you buy something bigger than a micro rig, but you don't want the capacity of like a load bearing plate carrier either. So
right, you don't want to be loading yourself down to the point where you're just like, yeah, you're carrying the same weight as a plate carrier.
Exactly.
So ultimately, we've both, after trying a bunch of different things, come to the Mayflower Mark IVs. And at least I've been very happy with mine. I've pretty much had no complaints, really.
No, there's only one thing, and we both agree on it, and we'll get into that, but it's the one piece of kit or one item in my shooting, my time shooting. I was going to say shooting career, but that sounds kind of gay and corny.
I was about to give you crap for it too.
It's like one of my favorite pieces of kit that I've ever purchased. It's the perfect amount of pockets and pouches, and there's admin sections that velcros out. But it's all close to you as well. It's not bulky.
Yeah.
And
it's comfortable. It wraps nicely around you.
Yep, you can
it doesn't stick out super far.
Yep, you can also use it as a placard if you wanted to on a plate carrier. So it's like the perfect it's the perfect piece of kit for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we can kind of go over what we carry in ours, and then we can talk a little bit about why as well. But I'll go first here. I've got my chest rig spread out, and we might maybe throw some pictures up of the kit as we go over it. But
we might just do a separate video on it as well.
Yeah, we could do that. That'd be a good idea. But basically, in my left or right, if I'm wearing it, my large admin pocket, I've got a chem stick. I've got some face paint. I've got a VIP strobe, which does white, green, and IR strobes. It's always handy to be able to mark crap under nods. You know, like if you want to mark your coyote call so you don't lose it, or, you know, mark your pack if you drop somewhere, whatever. And I've got a headlamp in there. Right next to that, in the small pocket, I carry just a Zippo lighter, but I've wrapped that in electrical tape, and then I have a Ranger band wrapped around it as well. That's a nice little tip I learned, is like if you've got stuff like that, you can just wrap some electrical tape or duct tape around it, and then you can take it off and use it if you need it, and it doesn't take up extra space. Right there next to that, and the little retention loops there, I've got one tourniquet. The old Garen Thumb saying, make holes, stop holes, and plug holes. Well, chest rig's not gonna stop holes, so you gotta be able to plug the holes. So I carry two tourniquets, one on that side and one on the retention loop on the other side. Right below that, I just have a pair of mechanics gloves on a carabiner. Going across the front pockets, I carry a Right in the Rain notebook with a couple pens, and then an extra pair of just orange earplugs, because either I or someone else always needs earplugs and forgets them. And then I also carry a roll of electrical tape in there because that always comes in handy. Next to that, I've got a multi-tool. Next pouch, I've got a Glock magazine. The next pouch, I have my compass, and then that other tourniquet. The next pouch over, I've got just a Streamlight flashlight because light is good. And then the next pouch over, I'll either run my med kit if I want that in my front, my Dark Angel blowout kit, or my radio, depending on just how I decide to set that up. I'm running 3 mags across the front in the mag pouches, and then I'm sacrificing that 4th mag pouch to have my SE4 knife mounted in that slot. And then in the large pouch in the back, I'm running some maps of my area with my protractor, and then an emergency poncho. And then, like we kind of talked about, the one thing that we've both struggled with the chest rig was just the re-indexing of mags into the mag pouches. So the one kind of quote-unquote mod that I've done is to throw some of the Haley Kydex inserts into those mag pouches, and those have worked great in there for holding those mag pouches open. Makes it really easy to put mags in and out, and holds those mag pouches open for me. So
Yeah, it's the best solution, and it's the only complaint that both of us have had with the kit was the mag retention. It retained them just fine, but for me, pulling the tabs over and then trying to rip the mags out and then also trying to re-index those mags was just, I ran it for one day and it was awful. And I'm sure somebody can make it work, but for $20 you can buy, mine are from a company called MC Kydex, and his fit perfectly. Because they're kind of I don't know how you would describe it. You'd just have to go and look at what they look like, but they kind of have these like tips. The tips of them are kind of pointed outwards, so they grab onto the fabric and make sure that the mag holder retention, whatever, the Kydex piece sticks in the actual plate or the chest rig. I'm sorry, I keep saying plate carrier instead of chest rig. I don't know what's going on with me, but yeah, it stays in the chest rig's magazine pouch, which I was a little worried about when I first got it, because I was like, well, there's nothing really holding the Kydex in, but for some reason the design that he has on his works perfectly. So that's the only complaint that either of us, that's the only complaint I have about it, and it's easily fixed with $20 of plastic. So,
and it's literally the simplest thing in the world to fix, really. You just slide that Kydex down in there and you're done.
Yeah, and after that it's perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've had apps, and we've run them pretty good. Like, we've run them in a couple of range days where it was just like literally raining all day.
Raining, 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was awful.
We've hiked around with them quite a bit, camped with them, worn them for, weekends at a time, which, maybe whatever, that's not a lot to some people, but to the average person, it probably is. So,
yeah, it's a good rig. And like you said, we camped with them. I think it's actually a really good camping rig too. Like, even minus the micro rig stuff, I think it's a good camping rig. So
absolutely. Just stuff like a flashlight, a multi-tool, a lighter, headlamp, all stuff that I have in mind. Like, that's all stuff that I take camping anyways.
Yep. So,
like, now it's all right there on my rig.
Yep. So I'll go over mine a little bit quicker, just so we're not sitting here for. Well, what we'll do is we'll actually probably put out a full-length video about them, maybe in about a month or so.
Actually showing the content.
Yep, we'll do that.
Video.
We'll try to do the plate carrier podcast as well, and then we'll come out with the plate carrier video as well. But really quickly, mine's not all pulled apart, so you might hear some Velcro being pulled open. But I keep my far left pouch is my whatever pouch. It's the pouch that I just throw shit into. So
snack pouch.
Yep. Right now there's power bars and a poor man's Kestrel. It's just a wind meter. It's like $15 on Amazon. But I've actually I don't know if I've actually successfully used it for wind calls. I just use GeoBallistic now, which is way better than anything else I've ever used. We'll do a video on that too. But
at the very least, it's given us accurate wind direction.
Yep, it has. It's done better than some of the other apps. GeoBallistic is so much better, and again, we'll go over that later. But I have chem lights all over it. I've got on a carabiner clip, I've got both my gloves as well as a full roll of electrical tape, because again, electrical tape is pretty awesome for being out in the field. I actually prefer gaffer's tape to electrical tape, but I have yet to find a good small. I found one, but there's not enough on it. So my search continues for like a 1/2-inch roll of gaffer's tape. But going down the line, I've got my headlamp in one of the front pouches, a Glock mag, multi-tool. I have in one of the last bigger front pouch, I've got like I call it a rape whistle. It's not a rape whistle, but it's a reedless whistle that is extremely loud, and it's just kind of like a rescue whistle. I've got that. I've got some, I'm trying to remember, Sulcoa. It's essentially just a fire starter with a big lighter in there as well. I've got a tourniquet as well, on just one on this kit. And then my last pouch, I think there's a balaclava in here as well as some just super, super basic med, and then a compass. So mine's a lot more basic. And then I guess in the back admin pouch, I believe I just have some topographical maps of where I live. And then on the state over from me, I've got some. So that's about it that I've got in my rig. Mine kind of varies. It stays stagnant for the most part, but there's a couple of pouches that I also just I take in and out, and I throw other things into it. I also am only running 3 of my mags. It's dependent on what I'm actually doing. Generally, if I'm running a radio, I just keep the 3 left pouches open for magazines, and then my far right one is for just a radio. And there's nothing special about our radios yet. So it's just the standard Chinese one. I think just Baofangs. So
yeah, UV5Rs, which are not great, but they're cheap. So
yep, unencrypted gang. Let's go.
Yep.
So
like for 90% of what we do, we kind of really don't use radios a lot anyways. So
no, we just yell at each other.
Yep, pretty much.
So
yeah, we're really running pretty similar stuff, and that kind of carries us into over into talking how we balance. I'm going to say another buzzword: combat load versus sustainment. In other words, like, how do you balance carrying mags and med versus carrying shelter and fire, and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
So here's my view on it is I view a combat load as like the standard 7 to 8 mags of full 30 round mags, on top of whatever else you might need. And I don't see that as being, for what, again, situational based. This is 100% situational based. For both you and I just don't see that being a super high need on the list to have that many loaded. I mean, I have them loaded, but they're not necessarily on the chest rig, right? They're either loaded, or they're in stripper. The bullets are in stripper clips in my backpack. So it's not that I don't have the ammunition for it, but I don't have them readily available on my chest rig. I usually have 4 to 5 mags like ready to go, and then the rest are in a backpack. So, and why do I do that? It's essentially just because I I value having nothing on, like, nothing, what's the right word I'm looking for? Nothing in excess on the front of my chest. I don't, it's, people don't realize how cumbersome it is to maneuver with shit coming out of your chest. It's not like a thing.
Especially when you hang a rifle on the front.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. You have a rifle on a sling, then where does that rifle sit when you're just letting it sit, right? It's going to be however many inches out off of your chest rig. So it's I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to do what I'm doing, because one, I don't believe that I would need that many mags ready to go. I have the option to, because both of the side pouches are double N4 mags. Technically, we could have 8 full magazines on our person at a time. So it's not a matter of that I chose a piece of kit that couldn't do it. The Mayflower, like I said, I keep raving about it, and I'm gonna plug it at the end. I found, as we were doing this, I was actually looking at the different prices versus like a fully built out micro rig versus this Mayflower, and I'll go over that in a minute here. But to keep going, the Mayflower has everything that you would need on it. You can fit 8 mags in there. You can fit 4 pistol mags on there. You can fit all these different things. You just have to configure it a certain way. And the way that we've configured ours is more of a hiking sustainment rig instead of a fighting rig. You can still fight with it, but it's more of, am I going to live out in the woods for another day kind of rig.
Yeah, so I think it's really just a mindset thing. Like, to me, my mindset behind this chest rig is, okay, maybe I'm out doing quote unquote recce things, and
we're just hiking.
So basically, I'm not looking to get into a firefight with this. I'm looking, if something like that was to happen again in this made up scenario in like a civil unrest or whatever, and I'm out there with a chest rig, I'm not looking to fight. I'm looking to break contact and get out of there. Which means if I've got 3 mags on my rig and another mag in my rifle, that's 120 rounds. If I can't break contact and get out in 120 rounds, I'm probably screwed.
Yeah. Even in the other mindset, if you have a full 8 rounds, if it's only a few of you guys out in the woods and you find contact, it's probably gonna be more than a few. And the winner of a battle, if you want to say it as cringy as that sounds, is the one that has the most ammo. So what we're trying to do is not fucking fight.
Yeah, we're not trying to get in a fight. We're trying to break contact and leave.
Yep.
And the other mindset behind this chest rig is, if I didn't have my backpack, if I had nothing else except like what I carry every day and my chest rig, like I want to be able to survive out of that for a couple days. So that's why I've got I forgot I do have some iodine tablets in there too. I forgot about that, but that's why I've got like an emergency poncho, so I have some shelter. I've got those iodine tablets, so I have some water purification. I've got a lighter to start a fire. I've got, and so I'd have to sacrifice a lot of that stuff to add more mags. And so it's kind of what's important to you and what your mindset is behind it. But again, I think a lot of people, I'm not going to say a lot of people, I think sometimes people get carried away with thinking, well, this is my fighting piece of kit. But you need to have some sustainment stuff on you too, and you got to kind of balance that. So
yeah, it's unfortunately it comes down to trying everything and figuring out what works for you. You can't just like run it one weekend and say I'm good to go. I mean, unless you found what you need, right? Unless you figured out exactly what you want. But you also you can't. I actually take that back right away. You can't do that. It's not possible, because that's not the only situation you'd ever be in with it. So there's like, you have to go through 4 or 5 different scenarios in the real world, not trying to simulate it, but just doing it. And one day might be completely miserable because it's not set up the way you want it to. So then you go from that and you learn from that and you adapt to that, Unfortunately, that's just how this works. The amount of gear I've bought and sold until I finally just said, screw it. And I bought the one thing that I've been told a lot to buy is this rig. And I used to have one of these when back in the old cringy airsoft days. I had one of these rigs, and I never really took full advantage of it because I was playing indoors, so there wasn't really a need for it. But I mean, I can't speak any more highly about it. And I'll finish my statement off, and then I'll give it back to you by saying, while we were talking about micro rigs, I went on to Spiritus's website and I looked up roughly, and this is again roughly, how much it would cost to set up an entire micro rig to basically do what one of these Mayflowers would do. And it cost roughly $275 to $325, not including shipping, to set up one of these. To actually, it doesn't even do the entire, it's not even functionally as good as the Mayflower. So take that price and then take it to, normally they're about $200, the Mayflowers. Right now on OP Tactical, they're actually $157. They're on sale.
Oh, that's a killer deal.
So
that's killer.
Yeah, that's a stupidly good deal. The only colors they have right now are Coyote, Multicam Arid, Tropic, and Black. So you don't have green or Multicam, which are probably the two best camos, but you can make it work. Spray paint it. Fucking spray paint it.
I was just gonna say spray paint fixes everything.
That is such a good deal. That is for that kit. That is stupid good. And OP Tactical or Op Tactical or however you call them, they're an awesome company. The website's super dated, but they get you your stuff within like 2 days. So
yeah, it's crazy fast. But yeah, I think one of the kind of what you were talking about with just like how much stuff that we've used and bought and sold, and that's kind of what made us want to start this Instagram page and start doing these podcasts and videos, is basically like we're both on a budget. Like, even though we have nice stuff, we started at the absolute like bottom crap tier of gear, and we bought something and used it and flipped it and spent a little more money and got something nicer with, I'm talking rifles and optics and gear and everything. And so why we're doing this podcast and this, our Instagram page and all of this, is to try and share that with you guys and say, hey, we've tried all these chest rigs and this is the one we think is really great.
yeah,
That doesn't mean it's perfect for you. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect for you, but you can at least come at it now like, you can come at it with a little more knowledge and skip some of the mistakes we made and save some of the money that we've spent, because we're trying to share that with you.
yeah.
So that's kind of the idea behind this. And that's not saying that we're like experts or that we're, we know it all, but we're just sharing the experiences that we've had to try and help you guys out.
Yeah, it's hard watching people that you have made this connection with, or a connection with, thinking something that from personal experience is not necessarily correct, or maybe it's not that it's not correct, but that it wouldn't work for that specific person for their specific goals, but they're so dead set on it, and then they're giving advice to other people that don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing, or are just looking for help and getting maybe the wrong advice. And it's hard to sit there and listen to it. And so that was the main goal of this, was to kind of get a little bit of a word out there on, we've done this is what's worked and this is what hasn't worked. Make a decision based on that, or try to make a decision based on that, right? So it's just, we're not experts. That's all I'm trying to say. But we have done a good amount of stuff. We've trained a good amount in different weathers, environments, different scenarios. And I think I said it at the end of the first podcast, the Dual Gun podcast, is that every single time that we're driving back at the end of the weekend or the end of the week or whatever, how long we've been out there, we always just sit there and say, this fucking sucked. This piece of gear, this part on my gun, this one thing, it sucked, and I've got to change it right away. or
Yep.
it was awesome and it worked really, really well. And I got to figure out how to build the rest of my kit around this because this is perfect. So it's just going out there and doing it and learning. But hopefully our goal is to kind of at least give you a little bit more insight onto different scenarios that you would want it. So
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is just like get out and use your stuff, because there's too many people that are sitting there with even their Mayflower rig and their Knight's Armament rifle that doesn't have a ding on the brass deflector, and their chest rig doesn't have dust on it. And it's like you might have that awesome stuff, but if you don't use it, maybe it's not going to work for what you need. So the biggest thing is just get out and use your stuff and understand what is failing you and be honest about what's failing you and adapt your kit from that.
yeah, being honest is a good thing because it sucks when you buy a brand new thing and it doesn't work out like you were hoping. It really does.
We've both been there much too often.
Very, very often. It becomes a thing.
And usually we kind of cope and seethe for a little bit, and then the other guy's kind of like, hey man, like you just need to accept that sucked.
Yep.
That's not going to work for you,
And it happens, like you said, all the time. It's just a part of what this, I don't know what you want to call it, this hobby sphere. It's just a part of it. It's the unfortunate truth. But the good thing is that the buy, sell, trade market in this hobby, or again, whatever you want to call it, is very good. You're gonna lose a little bit of money, but if you're smart about it, and it's not completely shit gear, then you can at least get some of your money back to put towards something new. And that's just a fact of the matter. You're gonna be doing that if you actually give a shit about improving your gear and improving yourself and improving your capabilities. It's just, unfortunately, unless you're just made of cash where you can just buy stuff and let the crappy shit accumulate, you're just going to be buying and selling and doing all this stuff. So that's just something that you're going to have to, and that's, I would love to say that that's something that we could teach you or at least have a podcast about, but it just comes from experience, unfortunately. And I hate saying that because I want nothing more than to just say, here's all the Facebook groups that you should join, and here's all the Instagram pages that you should follow, and here's all the Reddit posts that you should follow. I don't really use Reddit actually, but you can. But I would love to be able to say to do that, but it just is kind of one of those things where you just kind of, you have to be invited to them. And again, I would do it, but I can't do it to everybody. But it's also, there's rules, there's all these guidelines from Facebook and Instagram and all these different things. So it's just an experience thing, and you'll learn, but it's just, unfortunately, it's just how it works. And as long as you can tell the telltale signs of getting scammed, you'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be careful about that too. And that's, yeah, that, like you said, that's, you just got to get some experience. You got to get out and use your stuff. And that's also another pro of buying quality gear, is that stuff's going to retain its value a lot better than, a $50 red dot after it's used is worth $20. So,
yeah, it's, if that,
yeah. So
at that point, just throw it in the trash.
But yeah, so I don't really have much else to say about chest rigs. I think we kind of covered the basics. Like you said, I think we'll do a video in the future next time we're able to get together and actually show you our chest rigs and what's in them, and we can talk a little bit more about the kit that's in them when we do that. But
yeah, and most likely we'll actually, it'd be kind of a fun thing to do. We'll most likely be out coyote hunting, so we could just do that on the field maybe and have it in this is what we're actually doing, and this is what we actually have in it for that specific scenario. So
yeah,
we could try 100%. That. One last thing before we cover up, I made a mistake with the price. It's still on sale. They're out of stock, but they're still on sale. The one that I was saying, the 157, was just for the placard. It didn't actually have the chest rig straps. It's still $200 on sale. It's regular $209. It still is worth it 100%. And you can find these used. Like, I don't see them very often, and I think that's just a telltale sign that they're good. But you can find them used, and they're worth it. Like, for every penny that they're worth it. So,
Yep. Pretty much the only piece of kit that I haven't had to continually tweak to get it to where I wanted to.
yeah, I've set it up and I've left it because it's worked so well.
Yep, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up the chest rig discussion. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope we were able to kind of share some of our experience with you and help you guys out if you are looking at chest rigs or trying to learn about them. Yeah, other than that, I think we'll just catch you guys on the next one.
Yep, sounds good.